And welcome to the SpartanMag.com VCast. Jim Comparoni, Paul Konyndyk, Spartan Stadium, Michigan State 27-21 victory over Rutgers. Michigan State 5-5. They've won 2 games in a row. At times, Paul, this game looked like it was going to be kind of an easy, workman-like coast to victory job for Michigan State, but Rutgers stayed in it. They found something in their ground attack. Michigan State's defense began to fail midway through the second half. Got a big play with a blocked field goal about 9 minutes ago in the fourth quarter. A couple of field goals from Ben Patton. Michigan State able to eke it out, although they gave up a 4th and 10. Kind of a desperation, not quite a Hail Mary situation, but an error back there. Kendall Brooks looked like he misjudged it a little bit. Michigan State just kind of left a minute, but Rutgers was not able to come and completely steal it. But Michigan State will take it. 5-5, 2 in a row.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at Rutgers, and it's easy to think of Michigan State as a team that should win this game, and I think they, in some ways, were the team that should win this game because they've got better skill players and they have a better quarterback. But when you really think of it, Rutgers is a team that's played pretty hard all season long, and they've taken some lumps, but they've done good in spurts. And to use the D'Antonio adage, they've got players too. And I think one of the things that is alarming is you give up 224 yards on the ground. I don't care who you are. If you give up more than 200 yards on the ground, there's going to be a chance that you lose in a football game. There are not many times where people give up more than 200 yards and win going away. Now, Michigan State did some really good things, and maybe they would have. Won going away if they converted some drives in the first half. But the fact that they had 300 yards of total offense essentially in the first half, and they only had 14 points out of it, that's one of those things that allowed Rutgers to keep on hammering away with the ground game. And so you look at this in a complete, all-encompassing fashion. And if Michigan State had completed some drives, Rutgers would have been forced to pass the ball, and then I think really some good things would have happened for Michigan State because I think that pass rush would have eventually got home. We saw more of that in the second half, But this is not a great Michigan State team. This is a Michigan State team that's playing their tails off and doing what they need to do to win games. But let's not forget about the fact that, there's some serious physical issues with this Michigan State football team. Regardless of the fact that they've won. They found ways to win, which is encouraging, but this is not a team with a real high ceiling. If you give up 200 yards, you're not going to overcome it, and most teams shouldn't. But the imperfect Michigan State team found an imperfect way to win. The good news, if you're a Michigan State fan, is you keep on finding different areas that make improvement. Today it was special teams came up huge in a lot of ways, and I would have thought that would never happen given what we've seen throughout the course of the year. But you have the block, you have the 2 field goals. One was a 49-yarder or 48-yarder, and the operation was really good. I think one of the things people talk about is the field goal kicker problem. It's not the kicker per se. He looks good warming up. It's the whole operation, whether it's protection, whether it's snapping, holding, whatever. And today the operation looked much improved.
And there's you can't fake a 49-yarder when it's 39 degrees out. I'm not talking about field goal fakes. I mean, like, if you can make that, you've got some legit ability as a kicker. He's got ability. Michigan State came into this game 2 out of 6 on field goals for the year. It was a big question mark. Everybody knows what happened at the end of the Wisconsin game and the end of the Illinois game. Those 2 field goals Michigan State kicked today in the fourth quarter, they needed both of those. They were crucial. Not quite buzzer beater game winners, but the point where it's like, okay, do they even attempt this? What could go wrong? You're risking a block return for a touchdown like against Purdue in 1997. He went out there and hit those, and you're right. They found a different way to win those. Go ahead.
Long snapper. I mean, we've talked about the struggles that they've had with the long snapper, and both of those snaps on the field goal were nice where they needed to be. They weren't high, and that's been an issue, even on some of the extra points today, but those long snaps were just absolutely, especially in the 48-yarder, Behringer didn't have to reach up for it and put it down real quick. The long snapper has made a lot of improvement in the last few weeks, and that absolutely had to happen. But if you go back and look at some of the misses that Michigan State has had in field goals, I'd hazard a guess that a lot of those in the last few weeks have been, long snap errors. And no disrespect to Michael Donovan. This is a tough deal to come in there never having long snapped and then get thrown into the fire on a team that's struggling in a lot of different ways. There's also been protection issues. So I think the whole operation was better, and I think that changes the calculus a little bit for special teams moving forward because if you see what you saw today and you think you can replicate that in the future, then you're less likely to be inclined to try to go for it on 4th and 10 at the 30-yard line. And I think some of those plays where you go for it on 4th and 10 at the 30-yard line, that's just not a good, it's not a good option. Or 25, you'd like to try to get some points on there, and I think they can do that more often moving forward.
It's amazing that you put a team together and you practice from the spring through the August and all these games, and the millions of dollars that's spent to fund a football program and roster management and transfer portal and all that goes into it. But we're talking about 3 guys that are walk-ons from the Detroit area: the snapper, the holder, the punter, the kicker. All of them, for various reasons, may have thought, for good reason at one time or another, that they would never play for Michigan State. And here they are today. I mean, Behringer, everybody knows he's been great all year. I don't know how he got that punt off.
That was amazing. That was like the most amazing punt I've seen. Now, it was totally wasted because right after that there was a 23-yard rush or whatever. But the fact that he got that off, not only got it off, it had a 64-yarder that was down on the 1-yard line. When that was a tough snap, and he, that shows. That's a good thing to have on your highlight tape for NFL scouts, just to show that he's got a little bit of athleticism and an amazing leg that he can kick it like that without having textbook fundamentals.
You just never know what's going to be the difference in a game. And Michigan State played well in a lot of ways. Payton Thorne, missed high again. He had that problem in September, seemed to overcome it, but today he missed some. He felt good about some other plays that were made. He got a lot of compliments from the coaching staff for getting into some proper plays. Interesting that the touchdown to Jaden Reed on that post to twin high safeties, middle field open. Jaden Reed apparently came to the huddle and told Payton Thorne that play would be open. Thorne said it's not a play that they've really worked on recently. It's one that's in the playbook, but it's not something they game planned for, nothing that they had dusted off in practice all week. And they told Jay Johnson. Jay Johnson sent it back down, and they called the play. And it was a big touchdown to finish that drive. I think that might have been at 21-7. I think it was. Needed that one, and Reed and Thorne combining to make that happen, and Jay Johnson going ahead and calling it. Didn't know it at the time, but that was a crucial one. Jaden Reed had a big day today.
Yeah, and I think the Michigan State offensive line deserves some credit for their run blocking. You talked about Payton Thorne making some calls at the line of scrimmage. He did that quite a bit, and I think it was blocked up well. We've seen in the past, like sometimes when you change from a pass play to a running play, where maybe it might not be fully communicated, and maybe all but one guy gets the memo. Today, when he made those plays, everyone got the memo. Tailbacks did a nice job executing. I think this is the best collective effort by tailbacks. When you look at Berger, it really set the tone early. Broussard easily had his best game as a Spartan. Easily. It wasn't not even close. He looked like a real tailback today. And no disrespect to him, but he hasn't looked like a guy to me in the past. Today, he looked like he ran sturdy. He ran he ran a lot of effort. Ball security was there. Michigan State ran against a pretty decent run defense. These guys are, like one thing I said about Greg Schiano this year is the reason why Rutgers is better this year is because the whole run defense operation is better. You saw that earlier in the season. Doesn't always show up against a team like Michigan or some other teams where it snowballs. But Michigan State did a really, really nice job. Tight end blocking, interior line blocking, and the running backs for the second straight week did a really nice job finishing runs. Broussard had one run where I thought maybe if he cuts inside, it could have got for a lot more. I thought Michigan State played physically. I thought the running backs made good cuts to the middle of the field. They didn't bounce it outside. I think if you want to look for one really good positive thing moving forward, I think the run game consistently gets better and better. This is good run blocking for the second straight week. I think the tight ends did a better job in the blocking operation in this game than maybe they did in the past game, although Barker's still kind of a wild card there. He had the big touchdown catch, but he also had a couple times where if he had sustained the block or got what I would call a functional block, he might have sprung some big runs. So there's a lot of really good things in this game, and then there's a lot of things that really need to be better if Michigan State's going to, close out that game next week against Indiana. And the thing that you don't know is which guys can they get back? Are some guys beat up to the point where they're not going to be the version of themselves that they were earlier in the season? So you just don't know where Michigan State is at. But it feels a whole lot better if you're Michigan State to win a game like this than to come away with a disappointment of a loss.
Yeah, Michigan State's just further ahead of than Rutgers as a program. So when he gets a tight game situation like this, sure, Rutgers wanted to win and thought they were going to win, but Michigan State had some maturity today, which was nice to see. Berger, earlier in the year, just kind of a guy, okay, whatever. But last couple of weeks, he's making those cuts you're talking about. He's cutting more decisively, more quickness, and making someone miss once in a while. He's not out there like dodging people all over the place, but enough make you miss, and enough power, and enough. I think he's starting to have a little bit better vision as a running back. Got to remember, he played a lot as a true freshman at Wisconsin. Then the second year, he didn't play much and transferred. So he's not quite to the midpoint of his career, so to speak. And he just looks like he's a little bit more experienced now, running harder, and I think he's coming around as a running back.
I think one of the things that sets young running backs or older running backs, mature running backs apart from their younger counterparts is when they make a cut, it's not elaborate. It's a simple, minimal amount of movement, and they get north and south. You think of cutback runners, it's not always when you think of guys, it's not Barry Sanders. It's like if you want to be effective, you make a small cut, and that's what he's doing. He's finishing runs. I think he knows where the blocking is supposed to be, and he's not getting moved around as much out there. He knows what the plays are and where he's supposed to be in those plays. I think he's playing with confidence, and he looks like a top of the rotation back for this football team right now. I still have a lot of respect for Elijah Collins. He does some good things when he was in there. He had a nice play on a screen pass, but Berger to me looks like the guy that's you're going to get the most consistency with, and in the blocking operation, especially in the offensive line piece of it, is much better. I think they've done a really good job with the interior offensive line in terms of blocking, and they've gotten better each week, which is real positive.
So Michigan State 2 straight weeks for the offense not only has shown a pulse, but it's been a positive against an Illinois team that's among the top 10 in the country in total defense, and Rutgers is top 20 in the nation in in total defense. I'm not saying they're actually that good as their rankings. Sometimes you're as good as your schedule allows you to be, and in this conference it's a little less wide open than other conferences around the country, but still solid representative defenses of Michigan State's offense, which was a problem through most of the season, has woken up the last couple weeks, and that's good to see not only for this season as they try to make something out of it here down the stretch, but also going forward, showing that the program still has its wheels on it a little bit. Thorne doing some good things. Didn't see Keon Coleman as much today. There were some plays where he was on the sideline, but Reed played well, and they really featured the tight end on that one drive that ended with Daniel Barker with a slant and go, getting behind the linebackers, and that was really well conceived also. Thorne and Barker on the same page. The ball came out as he's making his break, not after it. I mean, it was on time. It's like they've been running that play a bunch this year, which they have not. And it was set up well with the route combinations. You had the other tight end, Malik Carr, doing a corner route this way, Jaden Reed a corner route that way, so that opened up that middle field open just a little bit more. And they went to the tight end as the primary, and there's a nice shot there in the red zone. Obviously scripted, and it came through for them today. So Michigan State ends up with about 453 yards. Like you said, nearly 300 in the first half, but not scoring, not getting points out of it, and that's what left Rutgers in it. So as far as the negatives go, the second time, just some of the drive stoppers Michigan State had. The 4th and 1 situation where Michigan State ran that counter boot, and he threw incomplete to Tyler Hunt. 4th and 1 on the edge of the red zone there. That was their second drive of the day. And, Monday morning quarterbacking, hindsight being 2020 for a Michigan State team that ran the ball pretty well last week and ran the ball. We didn't know they were going to run the ball that well all day, but to do counter boot, to throw to Tyler Hunt, there have been a few times this year when they've targeted Hunt in some crucial situations later in the game. Is either third down, they went to him on a deep corner. It's man-to-man and everybody else was covered. I'm not sure he was the primary, but if you're going to have a tight end in a situation like that, maybe Malik Carr might be a better option. I don't know, but going to Tyler Hunt on 3rd and 4th down might not be the best way for this offense to operate.
Yeah, and
I like Tyler Hunt. I got great credit, great respect for him. But when the chips are on the table, not sure he's the guy you want to go to.
Yeah, I mean, it's just on the flip side, I would say if you need a tight end that's going to block for you, I would not go with Daniel Barker out there. Yeah. I would go with Malik Carr in that instance. I was wondering on that 4th and 1. It was a rollout by Payton Thorne. I think he could have got it with his legs, and so that's something that's something I would be more inclined to, and I'm sure he would tell you that, probably on Monday or Tuesday when we see him, like maybe I should have run for that. There is some issues with that. And then there was another third and short later in the game where I thought Jalen Berger, he had a nice run in a short yard situation and moved the pile. So
3rd and 3 game.
So
3
I just feel like you don't like football is a game where you don't want to get too cute, and if you can do something simple, do something simple. Tyler Hunt hasn't really been open a whole lot on those plays that are, I don't know if they're designed to go to him. It would be different maybe if he was open, but it seems like he's continuously covered up or.
And he's a good player, but you never see him make a catch in traffic.
Right.
You never see him separate and high pointed or anything. Nothing against him. He's a good player, but.
The other thing about this game today is I will say this. That there's a lot of tight ends running and even wide receivers where it looked like, in a lot of games it would have been called pass interference that wasn't called today. And that really kind of negates what you can do with your tight end when there's clutching and grabbing going on.
The fourth time Michigan State had the ball, this is the first half where they're getting all kinds of yards but no points. The first possession of the game, 3rd and 8, Payton Thorne throws high to Coleman on a curl route. That's, just an inopportune time to miss high. I think he was open on that one. Next drive, touchdown. The drive after that, actually, the next drive was the 4th down stoppage that we just talked about with Tyler Hunt, overthrowing him on 4th and 1. Next drive, touchdown. So you've had the ball 3 times, moved it a little bit, you got 7 points. Next drive, punt, 3rd and 7. That's when they did the thing you're talking about, little whip route to Daniel Barker. Looked like there was pass interference, no flag, incomplete. But even if he'd caught it, it would have been short of first down yardage. Kind of an interesting choice there in 3rd and 7. Then the next time they get the ball, they score. And they're up 14-7, and that's all they had in the first half. 300 yards, 5 drives. You kind of stop yourself 3 times on 5 drives. As far as the defense goes, Michigan State, like you mentioned, depleted on defense. Everybody knows they've had 24 different starters on defense, and if it might have been 25 today. I don't know if Avery Dunn had started before. Maybe he had. But
he started 1 game or 2 games.
So you had basically 3 defensive ends. Fletcher, who didn't play last week, so probably not 100%. And he's just, he's kind of an average player doing what he can. But Fletcher, Avery Dunn, and Jalen Hunt are your defensive ends. And Rutgers came in to scheme them inside and outside and go after the defensive end area a little bit with some of those wide runs and the reverses and so forth. But Mullenguy and his ability to move the pile. Michigan State defensive tackles are good, but Barrow was back in the game, but has had some injuries. Everybody knows that. Slade says he's close to 100%. But the pile was moving. The lack of thumpers at the linebacker position. Halliday had 20 tackles. Van Sumeren was good last week. He might have taken another step back today. But Michigan State just unable to keep that pile from moving and the chains from moving. Well, and I got to say that Rutgers is a run offense. Mullenguy is a talented player, but Rutgers has not been productive as a rush offense this year much, especially in recent weeks. Michigan State's rush defense, I thought, has been pretty good despite the figures that they're giving up. I mean, Michigan's going to run the ball on everybody. And last week, Illinois running at 37 tailback runs. Michigan State held them to a good per-carry average and didn't give up any big ones. Michigan State held Wisconsin down for the most part. So I thought that despite those numbers, Michigan State's run defense was pretty good. And I thought it would show itself today against a struggling run offense, and just the opposite happened. I know Michigan State's banged up. I know they've been going at it hard week after week after week against tough run-style offenses week after week, which can exacerbate the wearing down process. And you come out and Deshaun Mallory's not available today. He's a makeshift defensive end, but he's been pretty good against the run. They missed him today. All those things add up, and Michigan State's run defense did not have a good day, and that's troubling.
Yeah, but I think one of the things you got to think of, the guy that struggled the most, I think, was Kendall Brooks, who's been very, very good against the run. He's a guy that's been beat up, and when you look at where Michigan State struggled, so they did some good things. They had a hard time getting that guy on the ground. Monungai showed great balance and great toughness, and when you have a couple of those runs, and it's a good deal, and I think it makes you feel good. And those guys Rutgers was feeling really good about themselves. But there's a number of instances today where a defensive line got enough of a piece where you'd expect a linebacker to come in and finish up, and if a linebacker can't finish up and the safety's right there, and we're talking about Michigan State. What I'm trying to say is Michigan State did a really good job swarming to the ball. Where they were really lacking, I think, in a lot of instances, maybe like safety help, and this was a game. Kendall Brooks had his worst game of the season, in my opinion. Not just in run support, which he's been very good at. So I don't want to be too hard on him. I think he's playing hurt. I think that's pretty obvious, and they need him to get healthy because that's a problem. He was also struggled in pass defense. I think he was probably the guilty party on both those passing touchdowns to some extent, and they need a better version of Kendall Brooks, and they need Ben Van Sumeren to play as well as he did, against Illinois. Now I do think that the Aaron Brule played another pretty good game. He's got to finish when he makes contact, and he had that sack late, and that was great. And credit to him. But Michigan State just has to get guys on the ground. There's too many instances today where there were guys in position to make a play. It looked like they were going to make a play, and they just didn't for whatever reason. That cannot continue if Michigan State is going to win. One of these next two games or even both of them, they've got to finish what they start.
Yeah, and Brule he gets in the backfield a lot. The way they scheme him up to come off the edges of blitzer and so forth, or just one of the four rushers, and he's got some pretty good quickness and some moves. So, he was talking last week like he's never been like a designated pass rusher type guy in the past. So it's still kind of new for him to finish in the backfield.
Yeah.
And he has the capacity to do it. Now just needs to get him on the ground because he's showing up there, which is the hard part.
So if you look at his sack, we talk about all the ones that he's missed. That was impressive because he was being blocked. He shed a block and made the play. With the ones that he's missed is where he's been like unabated to the quarterback and the guy's like taking one step. Type of deal. So I wonder if it's just like a kind of control type thing, for him. But don't underestimate the possibility that now that he's got this one, that he keeps on growing in that regard, because the sack that he had, was much more impressive than some of the ones that he missed if he would have gotten them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, he pretty much. It was a bull rush. It wasn't like it was like a shoulder shock into the running back and got off. He's gotten to the quarterback, spin moves and some dips and things like that. This one just took on the running back square, defeated him, and finished it. And that was a big play at that time as well. As far as Kendall Brooks goes, he's had a real good season. Today, the 2 touchdowns, like you said, the running back, Michigan State was in 2 deep. It was cover 4. And, Rutgers ran a pretty good route with running back coming out late, and the running back and the inside receiver were in the same track. And they declared who was going this way and who was going that way kind of late. It's kind of like a scissors thing, kind of a late switch release thing. And Kendall Brooks went with this guy to the post, but Xavier Henderson had him, left the running back wide open. It was a neat concept that Rutgers did to fool them, and he was fooled. Kendall Brooks made a mistake there. He's been pretty good in pass defense all year too. That one was a kind of a miscommunication. Just missed on adjusting to it. And then the desperation at the end when Kendall Brooks kind of misjudged it. I don't know if he's going for an interception or is going
he was going for an interception, and that's one of the problems. Good. If he goes deeper on that instead of jumps, then there's zero separation because you've got one guy on each side of him, and you're not completing that pass. They're not throwing the flag because they haven't thrown the flag. That was purely him going for an interception and being like a, oh crap moment because.
And it's easy for us to say up here in the press box, but everybody knows if he breaks it up, that's better than an interception because it's 4th down.
But if he makes the play, everyone is celebrating. Tough day for him. My biggest concern with him aren't those 2 plays. He did some. My biggest concern for him is can he be an adequate run defender, because they absolutely need him to be. If you're going to play with a Jalen Hunt, or if you have to play with a Jalen Hunt or Deshaun Mallory at defensive end, and they do some things to put you in space, you absolutely have to be confident and have to have safeties that are going to be able to, to rally to that point and make plays. You can't. Jalen Hunt can't. He cannot do this on his own. It's got to be a group effort there. He can do some good things, but if he's in space, safety's got to make some plays, and Kendall Brooks really struggled today. He's a good person, a good football player. If he can get a little bit healthier, I think he'll bounce back. Interesting
that Amir Speed was out of the starting lineup today. Ronald Williams got the start. Ronald Williams had some struggling moments too. By the end, Amir Speed was back in there. He could have had the scoop and score on the blocked field goal, but fumbled it somehow. And that was right after he had a nice pass breakup on a 3rd down stop route over there. Made it happen, for better or for worse. He was doing okay out there, but it's interesting that Speed has been in there and having some problems. I would have thought that maybe Williams would have started last week after the problems. There were some problems in the Michigan game and some problems in the first quarter against Illinois. Williams got the start today. So Kendall Brooks, this staff has shown that they will replace people. Kendall Brooks has been really good, serviceable this year, but Jaden Mangum is coming. Jaden Mangum's coming. He's getting some reps out there as well. Meanwhile, Chester Kimbrough gets a start after, of course, Angelo Gross being out 2 straight weeks. Chester Kimbrough started playing pretty well, but looked like he was knocked out today by a running back planting and leading with the head again.
And I'm like, one of the things that I wrote in the 3-2-1 is, if you're going to try to, this is really starting to bother me from a standpoint, and I'm not talking about from a Michigan State standpoint. I see it all over the place. Every week you've got examples of the tailback dropping their helmet and making contact with someone else, and those are plays that would be targeting if it was on the flip side. If one of Michigan State's DBs, if Kimbrough had come in there and dropped his helmet and laid it on one guy's ear hole, knocked him out or whatever, that would have been he'd be watching this game next week, from the sideline. We've seen it time and time again where defensive backs go in to make a play on a physical running back, and I don't blame running backs for doing what they're doing because it's not in the rules where they're going to get called. But if your aim as a football body is player safety, that it's applicable to both sides. If you're punishing defensive players for not having the control to keep their heads out of plays, then I think the reciprocal has got to be true. And I'm wondering if this will be revisited in the offseason. And I'm not sure if it will. It'll only be revisited if you have a bunch of high-profile coaches making a stink about it. But it really sucks for Kimbrough and for whomever else out there this season has been in a position where they could have a real tough injury when you got a tailback going downhill and dropping that helmet. It's not right.
It's a new thing because the running backs know now that the defender cannot come in low. So that's an advantage that the running backs have that they've never had before, because the defender cannot come in and drop his head. The ball carrier knows it. They're planting. That's how Mangum got knocked out against Ohio State. I saw Henderson do that against Rutgers, I think.
Yeah.
Earlier in the season. Yeah, that needs to change. And today, Kimbrough gets knocked out. Who knows what's going to, when it happened to Mangum, he was out 2 or 3 weeks. So Kimbrough goes out. True freshman Malik Spencer comes in. He's the nickel. Later on, I can't remember if it was Speed or Williams or it was Charles Brantley that went out, and Dylan Tatum came in, true freshman at corner. So I think on that play they might have had 3 true freshmen in the secondary: Mangum, Dylan Tatum, and Malik Spencer. So Michigan State's going deep into the 2 deep, and depending on what's going on with Kimbrough next week, you might see a 25th starter on defense.
Yeah, the other thing I wonder about, we've seen Marquis Lowry back the last two games playing in a special teams capacity. That's a guy that's got a lot of experience, and I like Marquis Lowry. Now I think
he can play nickel. Good point.
I think he's a guy that's physical. He's a guy that's tough. He's got good ball judgment. I think and I honestly believe that if he had not been injured this season, and he would be playing a bigger role, and I expect that's a card that they can play, and they will play. If Kimbrough can't go, that's the guy I would go with. And he's got a little bit of length to him. He's stronger than he was last year, aside from the health issues. But that's a nice option to have as opposed to going super young.
Sure. All right, Michigan State's 10 games in. They're back up to 500, playing some better football. It's not their best football today. They're still searching for that, and that's the way football is. You keep trying to improve every single week and see what kind of season you can put on the board. One more win, they get a bowl game, they'll get more practices. That's good for the program heading into next year if they can get one more win. And also, like I said, it's good just to see in the last couple of weeks that they put that the wheels are still on the program and moving forward. And we'll look to see if they can get some more improvement for next week against Indiana. Michigan State ekes it out. Some good things on offense, good things in the run game, good things in the kicking game. Thorne good at times. Tight ends involved. Running backs are good. So there's some good, but they're still seeking their best 60 minutes.
Yeah, I think one of the things worth mentioning before we go is the resilience factor. We talk a lot about them not being a great team, but we're talking about all these guys that keep on going out and they still keep on trying to find a way to scrap and claw and get in there. The fact that each of the units, offense, defense, and special teams are making plays, those are all areas of progress. And there's a reason why Mel Tucker thinks that this whole team, the way they've kind of overcome adversity, can be a formative team in terms of setting a foundation for the future. Mm-hmm. We see that with a lot of good programs. I think back to the D'Antonio era, there were seasons that were extremely disappointment, but they set the tone for better things in the future. To me, if Michigan State keeps on going the way they're going right now, this has an opportunity to be one of those moments where, it wasn't the way you wanted it to be, but you made the absolute most you could out of a bad situation. And I think that's where the most growth happens, as opposed to like a season like last year where you weren't expected to do anything, you shocked. That's great. But when you're down and you get back up, I think there's a lasting, there's a lasting effect, because there's a lot of young guys on this team, a lot of young guys in the program that have experienced this now. And just like Xavier Henderson did when he, as a freshman, as a sophomore, he can take that experience to these guys this year. Those guys can take that experience and build on it and grow from it in years ahead. So I think if Michigan State can finish this, can get bowl eligibility, it really bodes well for the program moving forward.
It's another step. It'd be good for the team if they can do that. Rutgers showed up to play, and they played well, but Michigan State was just a little better today, so credit to Michigan State on that one. For Paul Konyndyk, my name is Jim Comparoni. You've been watching the VCast from Spartan Stadium with the Spartans in East Lansing for SpartanMag.com.